1999, I had had enough conversations with people about horror films to have heard the question, well, can you do better? Enough. So I set out to try and make a short horror film to kind of show what I could do. Well, did I manage to prove that I could do as good as George Romero or David Cronenberg? Spoilers, the answer is no. I couldn't even complete that short film. And there's a lot of reasons, we'll discuss why, but the reality is it's very tough to make anything in any art form. Film is a collaborative effort that requires a lot of people, a lot of patience, and a lot of talent. And by talent, I mean expertise, experience, and most importantly, stick-with-itness, if that's a word. Now, I'm not blaming anyone else for the shortcomings of what you're going to see here. It all really lies on me. It was a crew of one. But especially at that time in my life as a younger man, trying to convince people to dedicate their time to something that they couldn't really see was probably a foolhardy task. And for myself, I didn't know what I was doing. I had some vague ideas about filmmaking and about how to string along a narrative along celluloid frames, but I did not know what I was doing. I don't present this to embarrass myself or to try and have anyone say, hey, Lauren, it's not that bad. Because, frankly, I know what it is. I don't really need any inverse validation here. The big reason I'm presenting it to you is a little bit more basic. Because even if it didn't work out exactly as you wish, we wouldn't have the films today that we cherish so much from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, let alone the birth of cinema, if people who just didn't know whether they could pull something off didn't try. I didn't pull it off, but I'm damn proud to have tried. And who knows, maybe someday I'll try again.
Quit looking so punk rock.
All right, so 1999, and that's a younger Lauren with hair, which I know is the reason you're all really watching this. I have no illusions. So this is Adam Smith on the bench. He was playing the antagonist of the piece. Sort of. The piece really doesn't have a plot as it now exists because it's just the footage that we actually managed to film, which is a little bit unfortunate. The camera is being worked by Kristen, his girlfriend, who would eventually step in to replace the lead actress when she went away to college. We had a hard deadline and when we had to have the whole thing filmed, and we literally only got a few scenes filmed before we had to move on because she had moved to college, and Kristen then stepped in. Adam was going to film school at the time, and I'd helped him on a couple of his student films and student projects, so this was him repaying me, I believe. And so this was shot in Phillipsburg, New Jersey, in a very, very small park. This is all natural daylight. There's no lighting of any kind besides what was there. It was also late in the day and cold. So while I was focused here mostly on pulling focus, which is where you measure out the distance between your center of focus, the item you want to be in the sharpest focus, and your camera, and then you can use both the lens and your eye to fine-tune and make sure you're in focus. Now this shot you're not going to see in any of the footage because it actually was not developed. It was sent away, and I got a slip returned stating that the footage was unusable as it arrived at the lab. So this shot that you're going to see all this time spent setting up does not exist. And a decent amount of the film doesn't exist. We shot maybe a fifth of everything we needed to tell this little story. The intention was for the film to run about a half hour, and you'll notice we have like 9 minutes of usable footage. And by usable, I mean it exists. It is not finished footage in any sort of way. It has not been really fine-tuned or edited. It's not been color corrected. It was shot on Super 8. The camera you're seeing is a Super 8 camera from Kodak. It is vintage. It was not a current model at that time, which were still being produced. But this is a vintage model from the early 80s that I particularly liked. At the time, I owned about 3 cameras. Super 8 cameras, and one regular 8 camera, which was already a foolish thing to have because you couldn't buy straight 8 film at that point. The behind the scenes footage you're watching was actually shot on high 8 video. Kristen was using my camera that I was also using during the production. There was an element of video use inside the film. So this is really just behind the scenes of us filming those days, and a little bit of a little peek behind what things actually looked like at this time. If you don't remember 1999, or you weren't alive, or you've mercifully blocked it out.
Cancer. Yeah, I'm prone to it.
Wouldn't be prone to cancer if you weren't wishing it on me. Telling me how cute it would be to have a chemo girlfriend with a bald head.
That's pretty wrong.
See, even Lorne thinks it's wrong. Even Lorne, who has no sense of morals at all.
Hey.
I didn't actually mean it that way.
I didn't mean it that way. I meant it morelessly nice.
No, I said that because, it came off sounding that way, and that wasn't what I meant.
I don't have any problems throwing hand grenades into the schoolyards.
Somebody's got to do it.
Exactly.
So you can see we were real serious about the whole project. I really just wanted to create something. I didn't have any ideas, so I was relying on friends wherever I could. We were also not recording sound for much of this, even though there's a decent amount of dialogue that I wrote, which don't ask me how that makes any sense, because it doesn't. The idea was later we were going to go back and ADR it all in. This is Michelle. Michelle was the original heroine of the story, and she's an incredible person, and she really just brought everything to it. But unfortunately, again, she only shot for a few days before we had sufficiently screwed up the schedule. So this is Adam and I preparing to mold his face. There was going to be a scene late in the film where his face was torn off. It was actually razor bladed around and then torn off, and that was never filmed. You'll see a little bit of the mask we did make. It's under horrible lighting. It would have looked better if we actually had shot it, but we never actually shot the scene. So Adam was game for anything. This plaster was made for casting on human skin, but it was not quick setting at all. So he was under this plaster for like, I don't know, 2 hours, something like that. And no matter what they tell you, no matter how many times you read the instructions or talk to people about will it stick to your skin, will it stick to your eyebrows, you never feel really comfortable about it. You never are 100% certain you're not going to do something that's going to negatively impact the rest of your life. So the fact that he was game to go for it is a testament to our friendship at the time, I think. And this is literally just, the kitchen of the apartment and getting the plaster on me. Getting the plaster on him, I should say. Getting the plaster on him and then letting it set. Just regular bendy straws up the nose so that he could breathe, and then just wait for it to set up. It didn't set up real well. I wouldn't say this was the most successful thing ever that we did, but again, since we ended up not shooting the big dumb face-tearing gore scene, it really doesn't matter. But this was the thing. I was trying to do everything from shoot the film, write the film, do the special effects, direct it, produce it, which, I didn't know what producing a film was all about. I had no idea that you should have created a schedule, got everyone's availability, created a schedule, and really set it in stone. We were still playing it off a lot of phone calls. Hey, can you make it next Tuesday? We'd love to be able to do this in the evening. And the scene calls for 3 people. 2 say they can make it, the third can't. So then you have to decide whether you're rewriting it or whether you're just not going to shoot it that day. How vital is it? So everything became a compromise. And at a certain point, I think everyone was fed up with the compromises. Like, everyone wanted to do this, but everyone felt like it was getting away from us. So this is the torn off face with the razor blade in the mouth. Lit properly and shown fleetingly, I think it would have worked. This hand was originally going to be attached to Adam's hand. He's going to pull away from a burn. Again, another scene that was not filmed. This is a internal organ, not precisely a heart or a kidney, but something that belonged in people. But here we go. So this is what exists of reciprocation. And I do apologize for the transfer. This is the only transfer I can do at the moment, which was shot off a screen. Refresh rates were a problem. But I kind of like the fact that it looks as raw and rough and ugly as it does, because it's pretty befitting of a project that got out of my control and was never completed. So this is Kristen. Now, the thing is, this is the second time I shot the graveyard stroll. And there's another scene that you'll see that I shot twice as well. The original graveyard stroll, the one with Michelle, is gone. I cannot find it. It was shot. It definitely exists, but it probably exists somewhere in a landfill where it was accidentally thrown out. So the story here is that the character that Kristen is playing was the older sister of a young girl who died, who was murdered in a dark magician's sex blood magic ritual. And she was sacrificed. And this character discovers that he did it, but he's already died of natural causes since. So what she decides to do is to use a magic spell at his grave. She leaves a talisman, and the idea is she wants to get revenge so bad she doesn't care that he's dead. And this quarter has a little bit of backstory. I'm not going to go into it, but the talisman is a quarter, and that was going to be a reoccurring theme. It doesn't appear in any of this footage again, so you just have to take my word on it that I was doing a thing. So there's the whole Jesus imagery, which since the film is all about revenge, which would be something Jesus didn't support, it's kind of a criticism. Now this I shot twice as well. This is the other scene that was shot with Michelle and then with Kristen. And I think there's strong points to both pieces of footage, but ultimately it wouldn't make sense for me to show both in their entirety. At the very end of the video, I have a little bit of the same scene with Michelle as a bonus, but that razor blade was sterilized, but it was actually a real razor blade, not dulled down, right out of the package, and Kristen just decided to go for it. So here she's performing her own ritual so that she can have revenge on the dark magician. Now what she doesn't realize is what's going to happen is he's already dead, but the dark magician, even in death, also still has some power. So he actually creates a situation whereas he can't kill her and she can't kill him. So they're in this kind of struggle. But so she sees him here. She's conjured him with this magic. And he's using her VCR in her house to show her her sister's murder. And of course, this is all basically a illusion. It's a dream sequence. The whole film from this point was going to be a series of hallucinations with her getting her revenge to a dead man, basically getting her revenge on a ghost. So none of it was meant to be hard reality. This, of course, Chase Through the Woods. This is in a state park. This is Natalie. Natalie was awesome, and I really love the footage of her in the woods. I love the slasher stuff. I think that came out really, really strong for what it was. Probably as strong as some films that got released around that time, which isn't to say the footage that I shot was great. It's just that there was a lot of cheap slashers being made at that time. This blade was not sharp. That was dulled down. And there we go. And so Adam wanted to freak out on camera. He wanted to do all those like weird convulsing in the chair thing. He wanted to do that bad. So that actual footage went on for a really long time. I just took the best parts of it and sped it up. Natalie is really good at being dead, by the way. Like, she's really convincing corpse. That's my last house on the left shot. And of course, the blood magic. So blowing out the candles at the end proved very difficult. There was 5 different takes of her trying to take out 3 candles. 1 would have been doable. I think 3 was pretty rough. And here we go. So there was going to be a part of this that kind of looped in on itself, and eventually you'd realize that the reason we were spending so much time watching Kristen put on her makeup was that she was covering up all the bruises, because she's in this loop of trying to kill him and him trying to kill her, but because of the 2 spells, they couldn't actually kill each other. They were just locked in this eternal death struggle with each other. That was the concept. And maybe that sounds kind of weird, given that the film doesn't exist enough to really showcase it. But so this wasn't this dark originally, but somehow the film has faded. Just this segment to the point where I know that it's very tough to tell. Basically, he's bringing her flowers, and what you don't realize as a viewer is that they've done this so many times. They've in dialogue, they were going to discuss the fact that they just both were starting to get tired of this never-ending battle in this attempt to get revenge, and she's basically asking, would you just die again? Let me have the satisfaction. And he's like, no, I'm not going to. I was resting in peace just fine. I'd made peace with myself, and you keep bringing me back to get your revenge, then the hell with it. So they go on this date, because the other concept was that they were starting to actually like each other through all this violence. So even though she still wanted to kill him, and he has no problem like fighting back with lethal force, though he can't kill her, they're starting to like each other. And most of that was with dialogue. I thought it was a fun concept. Ultimately, it was way too ambitious for the resources we had, which were none. We had no resources. This is funny. I had a pitcher that she was supposed to pour from, and we knocked it off the counter and broke it. So she ends up having to pour the liquid out from another glass, which is completely asinine. But I wasn't going to run out to buy another pitcher. So, I mean, I think most of these reverse shots are pretty effective. I think that it's rough, definitely, but I do think it works from just a narrative perspective. Again, here they're talking about trying to bury the hatchet, and at the same time she's drugging him, So it's like he keeps thinking maybe this thing's going to be over, and she keeps just finding ways to try and get her revenge for the murder of her sister. It's a pretty moralless film, because no one's really a good guy. There's not much righteousness. I wish that shot was a lot clearer, because it really played of Adam getting stabbed through the hand. And now, after getting stabbed through the hand, the drugs are taking effect. He's not feeling great. And I actually, you know what? For non-actors, because no one here is a legitimate actor, I think they do pretty well. I've seen a lot of independent horror films that have worse performances. That's for damn sure. And if it's all a little showy, well, these the kind of things are, right? So he's been stabbed through the hand. Now she's tied him up on the floor. And she's about to tell him that she will never make peace with him. Never make peace with him. Of course, at the end of the screenplay, they kind of do make peace with each other. And at that point, he just says, the punchline of the film was going to be that he was just going to tell her, like, if you just asked me to bring your sister back the way you've brought me back, I would have done that. And the end of the film is the 3 of them actually drinking coffee. But that was never filmed, unfortunately. I do like what Super 8 looks like. As much as I do like modern 4K digital cinema, I think 8 really looked kind of grimy and ugly, and it makes me remember going to the video store and renting some of the real low-budget Trek, which was shot on 16mm. 8mm film is just 16mm film cut in half. It wasn't always that way, but it has been for so long. You might as well say for the majority of its history, it's been that way. This is Natalie's graduation photo from school. That was the only photo she had where she thought she looked nice. So that's the one she gave. Again, we're fetishizing knives quite a bit. So there was about 3 of these knives, and they all could be used differently. One of them I'd cut the blade off so that you could do the stab. Another one had a notch out of it so you could do a cut, and none of them were sharp. There was no need for a hero blade. So, and now he's been stabbed in the gut, and he's going to bleed out. He's going to die for, I don't know, the 10th or 100th time. You know, she's killed him so many times, but because they can't kill each other, it really doesn't matter. That was my David Lynch shot there, the pull on the ceiling fan, slowly rotating back. And then we were going to go full cheese slasher here. This was intentionally supposed to be a cliche. The idea was that if you watch, she smiles slightly because they know they've been through this so many times. They've done this routine. So he slams her head into the toilet and then releases her. She starts bleeding out of her nose. And I love this shot. This might be my favorite shot of her just being settled down in the corner of the shower. He knows she can't die because he's not alive and he cannot kill her. She can die, but he can't kill her. So Adam was a trooper about this too, because in this apartment the water did not come out hot for a good 3 minutes after you turned it on. So he just poured absolutely freezing water on himself. And there she is. They loved fighting with each other. I mean, they'd been dating for not a long time, but they've been long enough that I think this was probably therapeutic, like any relationship. And again, they're just kind of arguing and bickering about the relationship, which is what it really was. It was really about, these two people who are into each other but have this horrible history but stay with each other in this kind of codependent relationship. I like that angle too. This bathroom is extraordinarily small, so it was having just 3 people in it was an insanity. But to try and find good angles for any of this was absolutely a nightmare. So again, it would be nice if we had recorded sound and the dialogue. We were going to ADR all this, which was never going to work in hindsight, looking back. But especially since it wasn't like we had Final Cut Pro to just like start layering in the vocal tracks. We didn't have anything like that. What we had was literally just, I was going to run tape, record, and then somehow dub onto videotape. I don't even know what my plan was, to be completely honest. That tattoo on his neck was just marker, I believe, or it might have been from a eyeliner stick. But whatever it was not a real tattoo, and it was meant to be kind of evocative of the mark of Ebon from the Beyond. That was a little nod to Fulci. And so there was also, you see that moment of burnout on film. The idea was that the cycle was about to reset every time that happened, and now it has reset. They've both showered. They're at the point where they realize that they can't keep doing this, but of course they do. Like the whole point, we're gonna be getting to the end of the footage shortly, but the idea was there was gonna be 3 sequences of her trying to kill him during the course of it. And then ultimately they'd have that scene where they'd sit down with her sister and have coffee at the end. And there is more footage than I'm including on this video of this conversation. I'm not including it all here because without dialogue, I'm not sure what purpose it would really suit. It's not as if it's, visually all that interesting. Although I will say this, I didn't have the ability because I only had the one camera functioning at that point. And I did not have the ability to have an establishing shot and then to shoot all these inserts separately, or to have multiple cameras running at the same time, one with a master and the rest from close. I didn't have that. So it is what it is. All right, so I mentioned that a little bit was shot with Michelle in the lead role. Here's just a quick clip to give you an idea what that was all coming out like. She drops the razor blade into the bowl of water. I like that shot. And there we go. That is what exists of Reciprocation. It's hard to say I'm proud of it. I mean, I know what it is. I know it doesn't really work. But it was a fun experience, and revisiting it, to put this video together was a lot of fun, and really kind of made me think I want to go back maybe at some point and give it another try, knowing what I know now about film. But anyway, thank you for dealing with this video and listening to me prattle on about a film that didn't happen.